In today's deep dive, we'll look at the NBA Finals, what happened, who watched it. But before we get there, we're going to do a quick five. One, there's Surviving Ohio State documentary. Two, Ice and the Los Angeles Dodgers clashed last week. Three, Juventus becomes Trump's latest political prop. Four, DraftKings enters the political arena. And five, the Lakers set a record for a U.S. sports franchise. I'm Ravi Gupta, and I'm joined by my friend Adisu Demesi. Jason is out this week. Welcome back to The Game Within, where we talk about the business and politics of sports and how each shapes what's happening on the field. Adisu, how are you doing?
I'm great. Unfortunately, we'll get to this in the deep dive and towards the end, but I watched, obviously, the Game 7 of the Finals last night, and what a downer with the Halliburton injury. It wasn't a particularly good game either, but, it was such a bummer.
As a Knicks fan, I had to truly discover my humanity. It took me between him and Reggie Miller, but we'll get to that.
We'll get to it. But anyway, otherwise I'm good. The world has not been particularly kind, let's just say, for the last week or plus.
Busy times,
year.
Man. Busy
but
times.
But we're going to talk about sports, which may be a little bit of a refuge, but also, as we know in this podcast, it's a lot of politics in it. So let's get to it.
Well, let's start with this HBO documentary called Surviving Ohio State. And this details the unchecked abuse on male athletes that allegedly happened for 20 years. It pulls back the curtains on sexual abuse scandals from 78 to 98. Key figure here being this Dr. Richard Strauss, who preyed on allegedly hundreds of male athletes while Ohio State looked the other way, allegedly. This documentary revisits whistleblowers, reporters, etc. The Ohio State campus crime data released in 2021 showed that the school logged more than 2,800 instances of alleged sexual misconduct by this Strauss figure, including more than 170 allegations of rape. Adisu, there's a key figure from our political life in the middle of this story.
Yeah, Jim Jordan. I don't even know what his position is in Congress anymore, other than, unfortunately, he's in the majority and in charge. What is he now? The chair of, he's a member of the Freedom Caucus, which is was the vanguard of MAGA Trumpism and is now sort of the far right of even the far right. But yeah, Jim Jordan was the lead assistant head coach for the wrestling team during a lot of this time, between 1978 and 1998, and he did register some on-the-record denials. A number of former wrestlers say in this film, this new documentary, allegedly, I'm going to say it again, that Jim Jordan reached out to them privately and pushed them to change their stories in hopes of making the scandal and the scrutiny, not just on Dr. Strauss, but on him, go away. So this man is now one of the most powerful men in Congress, for sure, and certainly one of the most influential people on the right. But this is a more than pretty, extremely spicy documentary to come out in this moment and about this person, even though he's not the central figure of the doc.
Well, based on what you're saying, I can only imagine that these QAnon figures must be all over this. They must be appalled.
Yeah, the sense I get is that it is not taking X and Truth Social by storm, but it's honestly, we shouldn't make light of it. It's we can make some jokes, but it's a terrible. 170 allegations of rape. This guy was basically preying on kids for decades and enabled. It obviously calls back to the Penn State scandals of the last decade,
Michigan.
Michigan State scandals of the was it Michigan? Yeah, it was Michigan.
Or is it Michigan?
State.
I'm thinking of Nasser, but he was the Olympics, but he's from Michigan.
It was Michigan State. Yeah, I think he was at Michigan State. But it calls back to those scandals, obviously, and the allegations are disgusting, and the men, largely men, who are coming forward are very brave to do it, but pretty. I don't want to say too much that'll get. These are all allegations. Obviously, we should show. One of the videos that we have queued up here, but it is pretty remarkable that a man that has reached the levels of power that Jim Jordan has reached, he is a congressman from Ohio, we should say, now elected by his constituents, what is at the center of a scandal of this nature, and it kind of is not big news. I would say,
Yeah.
I don't hear a lot of mainstream either sports or political commentators talking about it, and maybe a sad commentary on just the amount of bad shit that's happening in the world right now, but also, this is the kind of thing that would have taken over our public consciousness 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but now feels, unfortunately, like, he's just going to grin and bear it and wait until we all turn the page. So
Yeah. Well,
that's a sad commentary on maybe what the state of media and public awareness is right now around politics.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at a clip from the documentary.
And so I figured that why in the hell wouldn't this guy step up for us,
Did you remember Dr. Strauss?
Yeah, knew the doctor.
And Jim Jordan didn't.
But there is no truth to the fact that I knew of any abuse, or I've talked to other coaches, they didn't know of any abuse. That's just not accurate to say those things, that we knew of it and didn't report it. It's just not true.
There's no way that he didn't know.
Did he know something? Everybody knew something. So do I think he knew? I think everybody knew. Did it make me angry? Yes.
I mean, how do you characterize the accusations against Strauss, against him?
All I know is I never knew of any abuse from Dr. Strauss, plain and simple.
To say that he knew nothing, that nothing ever happened, it's a flat out lie. It is a flat out lie.
Pretty powerful stuff. It's one of those things where it's like you're settling in for a Sunday night, and even knowing we had this podcast, you're like, well, I could watch some like mindless garbage, or I can watch an hour of just heinous, terrible stuff. And it's like I just couldn't bring myself to watch it. And I think that's like the problem with some of these documentaries is like, like for a lot of people, like you have to really bring it to like force people to watch something like this. It's like I need no convincing that Jordan looked the other way on this kind of stuff just by what's written in plain English in these stories. But hats off to the people who risk themselves. I imagine it's not easy in the state of Ohio to speak out against such a powerful member of Congress, but also such a powerful institution in Ohio State.
Yeah. And years later, right, you're a grown man, you're revisiting trauma. We've talked about this on this podcast a lot before, just men's mental health. And I can't imagine these gentlemen on the team, whether abused or aware of the abuse, alleged abuse, want to think about this and let alone speak about it on camera on a Netflix documentary. But to do it it's brave, and it is sad to me that this is not a bigger story, but maybe with our little podcast, we can help bring some awareness to this. It's really hard for me to watch anything like this. But at the very least, mainstream media and people who are aware of politics and of Jim Jordan, and honestly, people in the state of Ohio who probably love and respect the institution, need to know that this is a story that is out there, that is that real humans in their state and that institution.
And was Clooney an executive producer of this or something? Like he was somehow involved in this, I think. Right?
I think he might have been. Yeah, I don't exactly remember, but
hats off to him.
Hats off to him. Yeah, it's called again, "Surviving Ohio State." I'm sorry, I said it was on Netflix. It's on HBO, so I guess Max. But check it out if you have the stomach for it. I'm gonna get there eventually.
All right, what's our second story?
Yeah, let's go to something not that much. Well, actually, maybe a little bit of hope and a ray of light in the sea of darkness here. The Dodgers, Los Angeles Dodgers, made news last week after denying ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, entry into their stadium, sparking an online clash with the Department of Homeland Security. You may have been aware of this. I forget which day it was last week. In a post on social media, But the Dodgers said that ICE agents came to Dodger Stadium and requested permission to access the parking lots and were subsequently turned away by the team. And then on Thursday morning, several vehicles were seen parked near the stadium, and 5 people in tactical gear were gathered nearby, according to a local LA publication, LAist, which reported that protesters and media then came to the scene. We have a clip via newscopter that we will show now of folks near the stadium.
But we believe that this is part of an ICE operation. Now, not sure if these guys are waiting to roll out or if they're waiting for people to come back. Apparently there were more vehicles here earlier on. There definitely is a crowd of protest.
Yeah, so there you go. And, ICE, we should say, responded on X, Twitter again, denying the Dodgers report, denying the report of LAist and others, posting false. We were never there. And the Department of Homeland Security also posted on X that the activity had nothing to do with the Dodgers, whatever.
Yeah, so it seems like they were there, right? So
They were there.
had another tweet that said their vehicles were in the stadium parking lot very briefly, unrelated to any operation or enforcement. Possibly true, but that's part of the problem here is once there's a lack of trust, it's hard to take anything they say seriously. And also, as you could see in the clip, it's hard to tell who's uniformed and who's not, but you and I have probably all seen the same clips from all around the country. And it's always hard to say what any one video is all about, but I've seen far too many clips of ICE officials without uniform on, tons of allegations that they're not identifying themselves nor explaining what the charges are or the basis of taking people in are. And I think if that stuff is substantiated, that is scary and wrong, because people should know if somebody's trying to pull you into an unmarked vehicle, they should first of all
probably tell you who they are.
Tell you who they are. They shouldn't have a mask on. They should have some kind of uniform. They should have a badge. They should explain why they're taking you in. Like, these are basic things.
Very basic. And, it is obvious, but worth saying that the Dodgers have a large Latino fan base for anyone who's ever been to LA. A very proudly Latino community there. According to Major League Baseball, about 30% of the league players are of Hispanic heritage. And so, the Dodgers announced they have committed $1 million towards financial assistance for families of immigrants that have been impacted by recent events in the region. We have a tweet to that effort. And also, as you see here, additional community efforts are to be announced in the days to come. LA, guys, I mean, I live in California. I live in Northern California, and I don't claim to be an expert on LA specifically, but I do know, A, I know a lot of people there, and B, I do know a bit about the community, and they are being terrorized right now, period. And this is whether those officials were there at Dodger Stadium just as like a staging location to terrorize elsewhere, or as a dragnet for the Dodgers game, or a wannabe dragnet for the Dodgers game. It is absolute fear, in that city right now. And LA County is bigger than almost every state in the country. Is 10 million people live in a relatively small county. So, if you are listening to this and you live in Ohio, like, LA County has more people, I think, than the state of Ohio. Just to give some perspective about the number of people that are fearful right now. And so I don't care, honestly, to your, to echo Robbie, your point, like, I don't care if they were there to go after Dodgers fans or to go after regular Angelenos. Like, this is we shouldn't expect anything. This is a natural reaction, and I'm glad that the Dodgers, and I'm glad that Angel FC and Angel City FC and LAFC and some of the other sports teams in the region have spoken up about this and said it's unacceptable, because A, their fan bases probably demand it, but B, like, it's just common sense that you should not be fearful of walking down the street just because you happen to be Latino and live in Los Angeles, that some unarmed guy is gonna snag you and throw you in a I can't believe I have to say this out loud, but snag you and throw you in an unmarked vehicle.
Well, let's move on to. I mean, these are not cheerful stories today, but
Yeah, I know. I was like, it's we're on a downer streak here, but hey, the world is kind of on a downer streak.
This Italian football club. Now, how do I say this, Adisu?
Juventus, you got it.
Juventus became the
Juve,
latest.
yeah, Juve, yeah.
Now,
Juventus.
where is this? It's from where in Italy?
Where is Juventus? Is Juventus in Milan? I'm pretty sure it's in North. It's in not. Well, I can't believe I should know this.
They went to the White House, and you and I and Jason have long been talking about how the World Cup and the Olympics are going to be in
Turin. It's in Turin. It's in northern Italy. They're rivals with Milan, which is also obviously northern Italy. Anyway,
Turin is beautiful, but we've been talking about how the World Cup and the Olympics are going to be an opportunity for Trump to embarrass us consistently on the world stage. And this is certainly an example of that. They went there to promote this FIFA World Cup that we talked about. Which is like different than the actual World Cup, which we talked about. This is like among the clubs of Europe, et cetera, that are all competing in the United States ahead of the actual country-based World Cup. Whatever, it's not about.
I think there's a game on as we speak right now.
Yeah, if a tree falls. But the Trump took this opportunity to opine about the attack on Iran before it happened, whether a U.S. civil war could be avoided, travel bans. And here's a video of the reaction of the Juventus players.
For that, he was never for open borders, and he was never for, if you think, he was never for transgender for everybody, or men playing in women's sports. You know, he was never for that. Have you ever had women? Could a woman make your team, fellas? Tell me. You think? You're being nice. What do you think? Think a woman could make the team? General managers, what do you think?
Difficult.
You don't say it.
We have a very good women's team, though.
You do have, right? Yeah. But they should be playing with women, right? You know, it's one of those things. One of those things. See, they're very diplomatic.
Good Lord, man. Like,
I literally couldn't watch.
Now, these guys have to play. First of all, who knows what their politics are? And it shouldn't, like,
I'll talk about that in a second, but
it's just like a lot of them, I think, handled it fairly well, which is like, you want to like do as little as possible in that reaction. Cause like your natural reaction, if you're in a situation like that and you don't know what's coming, is to laugh, not because you think it's funny, but because you're nervous. I've been in situations like, not like this, obviously, but where like something's going on that really makes me uncomfortable. And my reaction is just to laugh, which is why like, it's a dangerous situation because if I were in that room and I laughed, people would think I agree with what he's saying, but I would just be nervous. So I'm looking at these guys and they might be chuckling a little bit, but you know more than I do. What was going on?
Yeah, well, it's worth saying two of the Juventus players are two of the best American players. Timothy Weah, Weston McKennie. They're not playing. They're playing in the FIFA World Cup, not in the Gold Cup for the United States right now, which is also happening right now. We won't get into all this, but they are both, I think, well known. McKennie definitely at least in 2020, you know, has some tweets on the record being anti-Trump, and Weah, you know, he said, I think we have a video of this we should put up before we continue here. You know, was his father, I believe, or grandfather, his father, grandfather was the president of an African country. At some point, he's obviously an American, you know, I think, born here, American citizen. But anyway, he had a pretty funny reaction, I think, to all this that we should put up there before I talk a little bit more about this.
Was it like today at the White House? How much did you know before you went that you were going to be in a press conference? What was that like?
It was all a surprise to me, honestly. They just told us that, you know, we have to go, and, you know, I had no choice but to go, so shut up.
Did you enjoy it?
I mean, I guess it was a cool experience, obviously. I mean, being in the White House as a first time, I mean, it's always wonderful, but, you know, I'm not one for the politics, so it wasn't that exciting.
Finding yourself on camera looked like it was a surreal experience for you guys to be in that moment?
Yeah, it was weird. I was caught by surprise. It was a bit weird. I was caught by surprise, honestly, when he started talking about all the politics with Iran and everything. It was kind of like, I just want to play football, man.
What did you make of
You gotta love it, man. He just wants to play football. He handled it about as well as he can. But anyway, point is, those two players, do appear to be, I don't even want to say left leaning, but like they're not MAGA, put it to you like that. And there are plenty, I think, of MAGA leaning players on the U.S. national team and probably, in soccer more generally. But this was Trump using his platform to just. He doesn't have any sense of the moment at all. Decorum's a terrible word because like who gives a shit about decorum when the world is burning? But just like don't put these people, especially the poor Italian guy who had to answer the question. I don't know if that was the manager or who it was. I don't remember, team owner, whatever. But like, why are you putting these people in that position when literally they're just there because they have American players and happen to be playing in the FIFA World Cup or Club World Cup in the U.S.?
I thought his answer was a really good deflection where he's like, we have a great women's team. He was just like, whatever. It's like, get me out of here. It's like, well, okay. Story number 4 here is DraftKings betting network is entering the political arena here. They've started a political action committee. And honestly, like, I'm shocked they didn't have one already. Because these are very powerful political forces. Did you have a chance to listen? Do you listen to Michael Lewis's Against the Rules podcast? He did a whole season this year on the rise of gambling. And I don't know if you know the story that it all came out of New Jersey. Do you know this? Chris Christie sued the federal government back during his administration. This was a law under Bill Bradley that outlawed states from legalizing most sports betting, and that New Jersey successfully sued the administration, which opened the way for all states basically to legalize it. I think your home state might be one of the last to allow it.
There are quite a few, but it's definitely the biggest.
And it's a really good season. And I would have to say, like, I'm fairly libertarian on these types of things, and I know you gamble, but it certainly made me very concerned about the direction of gambling in this country. And it talks about how young men are using these sites in increasing numbers and how unhealthy it is and how the sites are gaming their users. And basically, if you're successful, they kick you off the platform. So it's really scary. People should listen to it. But I have the sense that these guys are going to be very successful, kind of like the crypto industry has been.
It's funny. I thought the same thing about crypto, which is, crypto went after Elizabeth Warren, Katie Porter, Sherrod Brown, Katie Porter and Sherrod Brown the last cycle, not about crypto, but about whatever random oppo they found on their preferred candidates. And I think the sense that I would get is that the DraftKings of the world will do the same, right? They're not going to necessarily be advertising about gambling. This PAC is, first of all, it's largely going to just be donating to, I'm guessing, to friendly officials, which is like, that's what, every industry, to your point, has a corporate PAC. It's kind of weird that they didn't have it sooner. But the interesting thing will be on the spending side, how they use their money to promote their business. And the crypto guys took Sherrod Brown. I don't think it was necessarily the reason why he lost the Senate race in Ohio last year to Bernie Moreno, but like couldn't have helped. And they weren't attacking him for being anti-crypto. They were attacking him for I don't even know what. Same with Katie Porter. It was like some nonsense I saw on TV out here in California. So this is not, I will say, I know more than a little about this because here in California we had a major fight on the ballot that FanDuel and DraftKings were on the other side of the Native American tribes out here and got absolutely shellacked, like 80-20 at the ballot in a statewide ballot measure in 2022, which to get 80% of any electorate to agree on anything nowadays is pretty remarkable. And so they got their ass kicked and, have their tail between their legs a little bit. And I think have kind of regrouped, and that loss, I think, has led those companies to regroup and realize that they have to they can't just come in and swing their what around and think that they're gonna take over.
Logistics question for you, Adisu. I without outing anybody, I know a lot of people in the state of California who gamble on sports. Are they using VPNs? Like, how is this working?
Oh, it must be, yeah. And even I'm guessing they did bookies
Yeah.
or VPNs. I don't know a lot of people who I can't. I swear to God, not just saying this because I'm on camera. I've never done it online in California because you can't. Like it's too hard. I haven't given enough energy to try, as it were. But the minute I go to New York or or where was I recently, Michigan, like I can get on DraftKings or FanDuel and bet on a game, and I sure as hell do. So
Yeah, you and I were once in Colorado. You were betting on
Colorado, yeah,
whether like the you know
the next basket,
Eastern
yeah.
Kansas Community College would like score 7 points versus 5 in overtime or something. I was like, this guy.
My go-to sucker bet was actually, I will remind you, it was exact score of a game. That's what I was doing. I was betting on the exact final score, which is ridiculous. But anyway, I don't begrudge them for doing this. Honestly, I don't at all. Like it's what you do. But I agree with you. I think I definitely agree with you that gambling has blown up to the point where there needs to be some regulation, and there is some regulation, but we need to get our arms around it before it gets too big to fail. In a lot of these states, and I think that's what a lot of these regulatory regimes are trying to do in states. But the state by state framework is hard. Like federal, it's a complicated one, just like all public policy is complicated.
Well, let's go on to the NBA here.
Let's talk about the NBA, man. Yeah, let's do it.
So the Lakers were sold to DSU. $10
the
million.
Lakers.
It's the end of the bus era.
It's the end of the bus era. And so Lakers have been owned by the Bus family since 1979. Anybody who's watched various documentaries, or not even just documentaries, but like dramatized versions of this on TV the last couple of years, $67.5 million Jerry Buss bought the Lakers for in 1979. Now they are in an agreement, or allegedly or apparently in an agreement to sell a majority ownership of the Lakers to Mark Walter, who I believe also owns the Dodgers, for a valuation of approximately $10 billion, the highest ever for a U.S. sports franchise. Jeannie Buss, who is Jerry Buss, has long passed away. Jeannie Buss, his daughter, will remain the governor, aka owner. They call them governors in the NBA of the Lakers, or I should say, governors in the sense that she's the voting representative for the team, and continue to run the team for at least a number of years, which is a lovely, pretty generic way to say eventually she won't.
Similar language was used with Mark Cuban, right? And then he kind of was out of it very quickly. I think it's just
exactly. At least a number of years, could be 2. It could be like 1.5. But we'll see. Anyway, we should show this video discussing what selling the majority ownership to Mark Walter could mean for a franchise that's already one of the biggest sports franchises in the world.
It's not just because you're going to a team that's rich. It's not just because the owner of the Dodgers is a likable character. To me, it's because you're finally getting a brain trust that is the best brain trust money can afford and smart people would otherwise use to advise. That factor alone is almost the biggest part of this on a lot of levels.
Yeah, Ravi, what do you think? I mean, the Buss family is kind of historically known. I really do recommend
Winning Time.
The Winning Time. I've only watched a couple episodes, but it's kind of known as a successionist kind of drama.
I was bummed that they only did one season. I thought it was really good. This is the HBO show about the Lakers. Is highly stylized.
Yes.
Really over the top, but really cool show.
But what do you think of this? I mean, do you agree with this guy, Clint?
I think there are multiple layers. I would say as somebody who just enjoys sports personalities, I'm bummed that the Buss family will be out of our lives just because I like these dynasties. I certainly don't like the Dolan dynasty in New York, but they're different. I feel like the Buss family has just been way more successful and effective than Dolan. And people could say all they want about like how dysfunctional the family's been. The brother was involved for a while. and obviously like any dynasty, like with each passing generation, in some cases people become less impressive. I buy all that, but I like having them as a non-Laker fan, like without a stake in it. I just like the idea of this family running the team. I also think that maybe this new team brings in like more professionalism, but because of the hard cap in the NBA, there's only so much you could do. You could upgrade the facilities, you could hire better assistants, you can get more analytics, you could do all those types of things. But in the end, you can't pay more for players for the most part. You can endure a cap, like a tax and all that. But from what I understand, in this new era, it's even harder to do that than it ever was before. So, will it matter? Maybe. They've done just fine. Like, I don't know. Like, they're doing just fine.
Well, I think two things. One, I do think that last point you made about enduring tax is relevant here, because I think Mark Walter, the level of wealth that he is bringing, can endure that tax way more than the Buss family can. But I do think the point about the Lakers doing fine, like, have they? I mean, I guess they have, but like since Jerry Buss died, which I should have looked this up before the podcast, but it was a couple decades ago at most. It definitely was this century. They haven't been particularly good. Like they had that brief moment where they got Pau Gasol and won those two titles in 2009 and 2010. But like they've pretty much stunk since between 2004 when they lost to the Pistons in the finals and 2020 or 2019 when they got LeBron. Like that was not a good era for the Lakers.
Oh, come on. They just won during the pandemic, and then they won twice, right? They won 2010 or 2011, and they won right before that.
2020. They won the bubble. They won 09 and 10, and then they won the bubble. They've won 3. So I'm saying before LeBron.
In 15 years? That's like, how many teams are there? 20-something?
2 in 15 years. But the way they won is, this. I'll go back to your point, which I think is a good one. The way they win is they get good players to come because they want to come play in Los Angeles. Like, it's pretty much that simple. They got Pau Gasol. That's Kobe. God bless him. God rest his soul. Great player. He wasn't winning shit without getting Pau Gasol to come to the Lakers. The Lakers were in purgatory before LeBron decided to come there. Suddenly LeBron comes there because he wants to be in LA. Then Anthony Davis comes, and then they win. So my point is, like, LA is the attraction, and maybe the purple and gold is the attraction. But, like, it's not because of the Buss family's leadership since Buss died. I think when Buss was Jerry Buss, Dr. Buss was actually running the team, it was something special about him. I think since then it's been something special about LA.
I beg to differ, because you think about from the post-Magic era until the arrival of Shaq and Kobe, the team was terrible. And so you have that period of time, which is longer than anything Jeannie Buss has presided over, right? I think her bad years were, 7 years, right? So you had this period of time where on both sides of the equation, the teams were bad. And you could say that of any dynasty. The same is true of the Celtics during the exact same period of time that Buss was struggling. So 2 championships in 15 years, that's freaking awesome. Statistically, that is well above average. And if you were to ask me as a Knicks fan, if we could just get one, give me one in 50 years, I'll take it.
It's true. The Warriors had one and didn't win for 40 years. So I respect it. But I guess the broader point is the good one, which is this going to actually change anything about the Lakers in a real way? Like, maybe what Clinton said is true in that clip we showed, but most likely people are still going to want to come to LA because LA, they've got the brand, and they've got the city, and they've got the glitz and the glamour and all the things that go along with it. And that's not going to change because the ownership changed.
You know, all this comes down to really the 2 most important hires you make are the coach and the GM. That's it. Like everything else, the facilities, all this kind of stuff. Like, look at the Clippers, right? Like, they've got a great owner, great facilities, actually a pretty good coach. It's just like they're undoing a decade plus of bad coaching and bad general management. And even then, you got to get lucky, you know?
Yeah, I was going to say. Again, the Lakers, God bless them, but like LeBron James is the reason they won the 2020 title, and it was just because he wanted to come there. It's right. It's not that they didn't do shit on shit to win that title. They existed, and I guess if you want to give them any credit, they hired the right people like Pelinka. They created the cap space to like absorb somebody they already knew that wanted to come there. But it's a lot harder to do it. This is probably a good pivot to the next deep dive conversation we're going to have, to do what Sam Presti did in the new 2024-2025 NBA champion Oklahoma City Thunder.
Unbelievable.
After that game last night.
You think about it. What year was it that the Thunder made the NBA Finals under
12? It was 12. 2012.
I forget who was talking about this yesterday, but it's like the idea that if somebody would have told you that after that finals appearance, this young, incredibly talented team, that Oklahoma City wouldn't be back in the finals for over a decade, you'd be like, no way. Totally different team, but still Presti there, best GM. This is what it's like, an unforgiving job being a GM in sports. You know, you put together an A+ roster once, like of, historically amazing roster with Harden, Westbrook, and Durant, and just come up short. You're up against some of the most talented opposition you possibly can have. It all falls apart. You got to claw your way back and make every possible right decision. And even then, you take it to a game 7 and barely win. You need a Tyrese Halliburton Achilles injury, which may or may not have swayed the game, but the game was very tight when that happened. They
were winning.
Yeah.
Pacers were winning when they went out.
So I'll start by just saying congratulations to Oklahoma City. I know Jason's a huge fan. It is a city that deserves a championship. I really love their fans. I love their vibe overall. I love the idea that a small market team won. Their team is just blissfully low key. I really like that about them. And who knows where they go from here, but they'll probably be around for a while. I don't buy this like this is a all assured dynasty. I just feel like the margins are too thin in the NBA right now to pencil anybody in right now. Like they could have lost to Denver, they could have lost to Indiana. There's a lot of teams coming in the West with Houston, for example. Like I could see this. This could be it. Who knows? But this is a talented team, and I was happy to see them win.
They were definitely the best team in the league. They definitely did it the right way, which, easy for me to say, but, and I don't want to diss the Lakers too much, even though the Warriors
Yeah, what's the wrong way? What's the implication there?
The wrong, put it like this. I have more respect, I think, for a title won by a team that was built than a team, like sort of piece by piece through the draft, through trades, than through free agent signings, because I think, not that I think free agent signings are necessarily bad, but like it shows more skill for from the exact people that you say, especially the team president and the GM, right? You're picking players, you are deciding. I think back to the Warriors again. I keep referring to them, but the last dynasty before what might be this one, and like one of the key moments in that dynasty was Bob Myers, then the GM, offering Steph Curry a 4-year, $44 million extension when his ankles were mincemeat, or at least perceived as such, because he believed in him. And that ended up being one of the greatest contracts of all time. And this is in I think 2012, 2013. Warriors won a title on that contract. But the point is, he had to take a risk to sign somebody who was not perceived as who they had drafted 5 years earlier, who was not perceived as a superstar, and build them into a superstar. And I think Presti and the Thunder have essentially taken the same tack, right? They traded for Shea specifically. They traded away a superstar at the time, Paul George, for him. They drafted extremely well in basically every draft for the last 5 years. And they built it, from 2 years ago, they were under 500. They were 40 and 42. 3 years ago, I think they won like 20 games. And suddenly they're the 68 win potential dynasty. And that I have a lot of respect for that way of building a team. But just like the Warriors, just like the Lakers, just like the Celtics, they're going to suddenly, the hate, they have a big target on their back, and B, here comes the hate.
Yeah.
Because nobody likes a winner. Everybody likes an underdog.
Well, it's fascinating how much free agency and trades still matter in an NBA, where you look at both sides of the equation. There are huge impact players on each side of the equation who are relatively recent acquisitions. Pascal Siakam. What's the tall dude that they took from us, the Knicks, the white guy?
Hartenstein.
Hartenstein.
He's black, by the way, low key.
What?
Just you didn't know that?
No. I think I should have known that.
Swear to God, he's a black German. Look it up. Anyway.
You look at these people, Shea. I mean, a lot of these guys. I mean, Shea is relatively he's been around a little bit, but so you got all those players. It's cool to see. What I like about this version of the NBA is that it has less to do with who's your best player than just how deep and consistent your roster is, and defense really matters. And I think this gets back to when I was trying to defend Nico Harrison. I didn't really mean it, but I was just trying to make a point of his larger point about a player like Luka struggling in this modern NBA to carry a winning team. I think is the right point. I think he executed it poorly, but I think his point about look, if this guy is never going to play defense, it's hard to imagine us getting over this hump. And as you're watching this series, I'm kind of with him on that. I'm look, again, I don't think he executed properly. Although in hindsight, luck being what it is, as we were talking about, I would probably take that trade now, knowing what the Mavericks got in return. But it's hard to imagine winning in this modern NBA if one of your top players is going to be on the court the entire time and can't play defense.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, and it is an unsexy way to build a team too, is to think defense first, right? And Shea is a transcendent offensive talent, right? So you have the traditional what you need to win a championship, but he's a good defensive player. Right. He's a really good defensive player. And last night, man, Chet Holmgren was just erasing dudes on the Pacers. And Lou Dort, that play he made in the fourth quarter, and who cares about Lou Dort? No one will ever. He's going to come and go through the NBA and probably make a few all-defensive teams, and he's a great player. Don't get me wrong, but he is in my mind kind of the quintessential Thunder player and the quintessential player of this era, which is Caruso. I would also put on that list, sort of somebody who is undervalued because the things that he does are unsexy, and there's an arbitrage opportunity for sure in the NBA. Maybe it's shrinking now for just players that are undervalued because the things they do don't sell tickets, but they win championships. I saw a great stat when I was looking today that only 3 players have won multiple championships in the 2020s in the NBA. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Alice Caruso, and Drew Holiday.
ACP on? What team is he on?
He was on the Lakers in 2020. Same with
no, but what is he on
Lakers,
right now?
He just got traded to Memphis. But
okay.
But he won in 2020, and then with the Nuggets in 2023. Caruso yesterday, and in 2020, and then Drew Holiday with the Celtics and with the Bucks. Anyway, my point there is Drew Holiday, I guess, got paid eventually, but they are all defense first players, and it is. I think you're right that the way you build a team in this era, in this business environment of the NBA, is a lot. Maybe it's the new CBA. Is a lot different than it was a decade ago, where you were get me 3 superstars and put a bunch of minimum players at the end of the bench and let's go. And now it's I got to get some young players on good contracts, and I got to get some defense first players and try to put together throw it in a pot, mix it up, and see what happens.
Yeah, that's why I'm a little bit worried about where my Knicks are heading now, where we got rid of Thibodeau and we're basically scraping the bottom of the barrel now. It doesn't look like they have a plan for a replacement coach. It's been a big debate here in New York. I didn't like the move in the beginning, and I hate it a lot more now. And even the people, I got some friends who were initially really excited about getting rid of Thibodeau, and now we're looking at the names being floated, being oh Lord, this does not look good. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, Tyrese Halliburton went down with what looks to be an Achilles injury, which means he not only was out for that pivotal game, but probably will be out for all of next season. Jason Tatum had a similar injury. Damian Lillard had a season-ending Achilles tear. That's 3 of some of the most important high impact players in the entire NBA all going down in the playoffs. Here's a video of Gilbert Arenas talking about this injury trend.
Even with Jason Tatum, when I asked him about the Achilles, and Dame. I said, was your calf hurting before? And they all both said yes.
Yeah, he was playing with the strained calf.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that people have been talking about this forever, which is like, Bill Simmons was talking about this. It's like, I think it happened to Durant when Durant.
Oh, yeah.
It's like these guys have whatever is happening, like, no doctor, but it seems like everybody has these more basic injuries that sound very similar, and then they're playing and hurting themselves. And I know that these are like critical games, but the NBA has got to stop these players from going out in games like this. I know that it's game 7, and I know it's like an impossible thing to ask of people, but it seems like, somebody needs to just say, this is just not allowed. It's like a concussion protocol.
It's a tough one, man. How do you tell Tyrese Halliburton not to play in game 7? I honestly think if he knew, that's probably overstating it. If he knew what would have happened, he still would have gone out. If he had known the risk, he probably still would have gone out there. Like if he knew the risk was 30-70 or whatever it probably really was yesterday at the beginning of the game, he probably still would have done it. Like, this is literally what you play for. Like, the whole reason you play basketball professional basketball is to get to an NBA Finals, to try to win a championship. Game 7, you've been dreaming about it in your backyard, shooting, buzzer beaters, etc. So, like, same with KD when he tore it in the Game 5 of the Finals in 2019. Like, I can't really blame them for going out there. What I do think is the game has gotten so hard physically that is just different than it was in the 1990s or 2000s. It is fast. It is movement. Tyrese Halliburton is a fast twitch movement kind of player, right? He runs around. He does funky shit, and those kind of players did. I mean, I'm not gonna say they didn't exist in the 80s and 90s, but like it was. If you go back and watch some YouTube games of like Lakers Celtics finals from the 80s, you're not going to see a lot of off-ball cuts, and it's not. I'm not saying it was worse or better basketball. It's just like a different kind of basketball that clearly is putting more of a strain on players. That said, I'm not sure you can legislate it. Like,
right.
The best way you can do it is more rest, or I don't know, maybe less rest. Like, I'm no doctor either. Maybe the 2 days off between the games was worse than just like 1 day off. Maybe this was accumulated over the course of now 100 games or whatever the Pacers have played over the course of the last 9 months. You need to shorten the season. But when players are hurt, the one thing we can do, I guess I'll say in conclusion to this, is we can stop calling players soft or criticizing them for protecting their bodies and trying to avoid catastrophic, potentially career-ending injuries. Because if Tyrese had sat out last night, like in the Valesian, in the Rawlsian veil of ignorance, like he had decided that he is not playing, can you imagine the commentary that podcasts like ours and others today would probably be throwing out there? So, but like in that world, he's got an Achilles tendon today.
Well, the NBA saw some of the highest ratings it's seen in a long time. So over 16 million people watched it, which is the most watched NBA Finals game in 6 years. And what's interesting is the first 5 games had the worst 5-game average for the finals in the Nielsen era. So 1988 to present, save for the Lakers Heat 2020 bubble finals. So, which is weird. You would have expected the bubbles to be higher given we're all just sitting around watching shit. But what's interesting is you look at these numbers and you're like, well, if game 7 had that really high rating and there were 7 games, maybe the NBA is just fine on this, right? Because like low average per game, but you get all 7 of them, and the last one is a huge hit. So,
well, you got to get to 7.
Yeah,
is the problem, right? If the Thunder win in 5, like it's a whole different conversation.
But I'm just saying, like looking back now, I think this is about as good as an outcome as they could have gotten from a Thunder Pacers playoff series.
Is it? I'm sorry. Say that again.
This is the best outcome they could have gotten.
Best, yeah.
Yeah, 7 games, huge viewership on the final game. Yeah, that's
created stars. I do think that we talked about this before the series. Like Shea is a bigger star, and Tyrese Halliburton probably the number one biggest winner of this in terms of went from very good All NBA All Star player to universally known and respected and something a little bigger than basketball. And that's huge for the league, even though unfortunately he's not going to be playing next year. But yeah, I think you're right. This is probably the best they could have hoped for from a Pacers OKC series. I'm not sure you can't replicate this though. Like it's, if you go back, we went back and looked, like Warriors Celtics from 2022, from the last 4 years at least, was the highest rated series by far. It went 6, if I remember correctly. And why was that series highly rated? You had Boston Celtics, the most historically, either them or the Lakers, historical franchise in the league, and you had Steph Curry, 1B amongst stars in the league. And unless and until you can recreate that with other teams, I just think you're not going to reach those heights. You need stars and you need stories. And OKC Indiana was never that, or didn't become that until Game 7.
Right.
And maybe it needed a 7-game series to get there.
They need a rivalry, like Josh Allen, Mahomes, or like, Sinner Alcaraz, which we talked about, Red Sox, Yankees. Like, we need more of that. Pacers, Knicks was kind of that. Like, our whole city was watching that game. And I imagine, like, nationally, it played pretty well. And you imagine if Steph and LeBron would have gone at it. Like, these are the types of rivalries. We just need more of them, and you can't really contrive them. They just have to happen organically, and there will be periods of time in which there are none.
I do. There are some ways you could try to contrive them. Like, I've thought about this a lot. Could you do what baseball used to do, which is just like you only play within your conference, and maybe you have like fewer they already do have fewer interconference games. Then you only play teams in the other conference once a year or twice a year, once at home, once away, versus 4 in your conference. But like maybe make it 5-1, so you have more opportunities to to play the teams inside your conference, or maybe even in your division 6, right, or something like that. Like try to manufacture it, not unlike the NFL, right, which I do think has created the Cowboys and the Eagles. Cowboys and the Redskins, or I'm sorry, the Commanders, like hate each other from years of playing each other every single year, right? So you could try, I guess, but that would require, and this is the business side of all of this, and the business side, and the reason why we're talking about this on this podcast is like Adam Silver and the NBA have to make a business decision about what is best for the league, and the league, and ultimately Adam Silver represents the owners, and to change anything. A rule, let alone shorten the season, let alone change the mix of who you play. It's a politics game. You have to get a majority of the owners to essentially agree to like take less money, and with that, you have to get the players, because the players split the money by contract with the teams. And like, I don't think Adam Silver wants that smoke. I don't think. It's a lot of work, dude. It's a lot of work. And
here's my idea. Here's my idea. And Silver, if you're listening, you can take it for free. I think they need to start a division of the NBA that's like the division of story or something, and it could be like almost like the WWE. Now, if a player can opt in to be part of the story division, right? You don't have to do it. Maybe LeBron and some of these big stars don't want to do it. But if you opt in, there's a whole other pot of money available to you. But you have to be in the good graces of the story division, which means that if they talk to you, you have to come up with ways to like talk shit, create stories and rivalries. And like, but you can't comment on the existence of it. Neither can any other players. And this should be like super fine, more than criticizing.
It's like Fight Club.
Yeah.
It's like if you're in story. Okay, got it.
And look, like in the end, there'll be like anonymous source stories and things like that about this or that. But like, and we don't have to talk about the American public's propensity to believe this kind of shit. But like, it will just help, because along the way, we'll just have all kinds of just grenades being thrown left and right. and I think it could be really fun. And the players can make more money,
I hate the idea, but I like the impetus behind it, which is we just need the players, and this is the last
more Dylan Brookses. You know what I'm saying?
Well, this is the last thing I wanted to talk about before we wrap up, which is there was last night and this morning I saw some social media activity about it, about just how like subdued the celebration was amongst the OKC players. Now they're like 20, they're in their early 20s. Like there was
Michelob.
Yeah, exactly. Trey Holmgren called it Michelob instead of Michelob Ultra. They couldn't figure out. Alex Caruso, who's like 30, was the only person on the team who knew how to open a bottle of champagne, which I thought was fucking hilarious. But anyway, the point is, it was like not a particularly effusive celebration. And I'm to relate this back to your crazy story league idea, is I do think the players, maybe it's a generational thing or whatever, are just like a little too chill. Like you said this at the very beginning of this podcast, and I kind of reacted to it. It's like, I don't know if I want chill. Like I want, because chill doesn't lend itself to to stories. I don't need necessarily everyone to be Dylan Brooks, but like I want competitive. I want people to feel like, to be emotional. I want, I love Draymond Green. Obviously he's on my team. I'd hate him if he was on somebody else's, but like he brings his whole self to the arena and is not just treating it like a job. Right. And so that's the way. I do fear that OKC as a team and the league as a whole is becoming too much like Jokic is like this too, right? I play this and then I go home and I go to play with my horses. Or the OKC team, like, yeah, we won the title, and then tomorrow I'm going to be like at Fashion Week if I'm Shea. And that doesn't lend itself to the drama that you're hoping for, Robbie. So I don't have any ideas for Adam Silver other than like, yeah, let's show your ass a little bit, guys. Like it's same in politics. Like the more you show your full self, I think the more interesting it is for people to watch.
Well, that's all we got for today. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you're watching online, go to your pod feed, wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to The Game Within. Remember, sports matter.